Hey there, beautiful bookish souls. It is the something of the something. It's actually already March, but I'm pretending that February has only just ended so that I can give you my February wrap-up and my March TBRs. Woohoo! So without any further ado, let's just jump into the wrap-up. First book that I finished in February was this beautiful book, Between the World and Me, which I still haven't returned to the library because I am a horrible, horrible person. But moving right along from that. Keywords to describe this book would be non-fiction, America, philosophy, persuasive peace, history, black pride, slavery, racism. Key themes that this book explored include black bodies, the difference between systemic and physical racism, the American dream, education, and poetry in words. What was hiding behind the smokescreen of streets and schools? And what did it mean that number 2 pencils, conjugations without context, Pythagorean theorems, handshakes and head nods were the difference between life and death, were the curtains drawing between the world and me. Second book that I read in February was Homegoing. Some keywords to describe this book would be own voices, Ghana, the Gold Coast of Africa, slavery, and historical fiction, I would say. Some key themes that this book explored include family, ancestry, and inheritance, black and white, fire and water, and strength versus weakness. The need to call this thing good and this thing bad, this thing white and this thing black, was an impulse that Effia did not understand. In her village, everything was everything. Everything bore the weight of everything else. Third book that I read in February was Illuminae. Illuminae. Keywords to describe this book would be YA, science fiction, space travel, futuristic, technology. Some key themes that this book explored. Really, this book obviously was mainly more plot-driven than theme-driven, but the one theme that I did pick up was sort of the exploration of artificial intelligence and technology and the development of technology, so that was quite interesting. When the light that kisses the back of her eyes was birthed, her ancestors were not yet born. How many human lives have ended in the time it took that light to reach her? Final book that I read in February was this beautiful original translation of The Beauty and the Beast. The Beauty and the Beast. Technically I haven't actually finished this, I have a few pages left, but I'm allowing myself to include it here because I am filming this a day early and I know that I will have finished it by tonight, so technically by the time that I would have done this wrap up, I would have finished this book. So here it is. Keywords to describe this book, really: fairy tale, classic, French, translation, retelling. It's not actually a retelling, this is supposed to be the original fairy tale. Key themes in this book, I mean, it's a children's story, there weren't really many themes being explored at all. One theme that I did pick up on, which is obvious in every retelling, every single rendition of this story, is of course the concept of appearances not being what they seem, and the importance of looking beneath the surface for someone's true character. Upon entering the court, they were received by a salute of artillery, which, added to the sound of 1,000 instruments of various kinds, some soft and some warlike, had a fine effect. The beast must be very hungry indeed, said Beauty half jestingly, to make such grand rejoicings at the arrival of his prey. So that's all of the books that I finished in February. Moving along to my bros. These are my bros. Obviously the first bro is still Catch 22. Now, this is now the second month that it hasn't been read and has been transferred along to March now. The reason for that is that I have tried to read this and I don't think I'm in the right mood to read it, so it probably won't be being read in March either, but I'm gonna keep mentioning it as a bro until I do read it, just so that I absolutely cannot possibly forget it and leave it behind, because Ohana means family, and family means no book gets left behind or forgotten. The whole thing about no one in the movie, that was actually a misprint. And the second bro, which I am slowly getting through, is The Good Immigrant still, because like I said, I tend to read a story or two of this in between other books or when I don't have any other books around for me to read. So I've read a couple more, and I plan to just keep picking away at various stories from this as the months go by. And the final bro is The Leopard, which was the book that I pulled out of my TBR jar last month, and which I went to several bookshops to find, but couldn't find it in any of them. So I'm going to have to keep looking for that and hope that I find a shop that has it eventually, so that I can eventually read that book too. Now, before I mention my actual official TBRs for March, I am going to reveal the theme for March, because the theme for March helps explain the books that I have chosen to read this month. So the theme for March is March Hares and Mad Hatters, and it's very different to the previous two themes that I have chosen for the previous 2 months, and the reason for that was that I was feeling just a little bit whimsical. I'm not going to reveal too much about the videos that I have planned for this month, but just know that I have actually been working on the videos for this theme and the ideas for them for a few weeks already, and I'm very excited for them. I think they're going to be very, very good and very interesting, and I think that this month might actually be the most cohesive theme of videos that I have made so far. So because of that, and because of the fact that I'm feeling a bit whimsical and I'm kind of just in the mood to read sort of fantasy and childhood favorites and things like that, the TBRs that I have for March include, first up, The Hobbit. This book was posited as one of the potential March reads for the Read, React, Repeat book club, and as soon as they started talking about it, I realized that I have just got the hugest craving to read this book again. I have read this book before, but I really, really want to read it again. So I will be reading this month, because that's just what I'm in the mood for. Second book that I'm hoping to read in March is Harry Potter. Now, those of you with brains, which is all of you, will notice that this Harry Potter looks a little bit different to most Harry Potters, and that is because it is actually the French edition of Harry Potter. I've had this for a while, and I have studied French and am reasonably good at French, and I've been dying to have a chance at reading Harry Potter in French for quite some time, so I'm going to start giving that a crack this month. This will probably take me several months to read, because I have no doubt that I will be very slow at reading in French, but I'm very excited to start reading it, and that will be another book that I read this month. The third book that I'm hoping to read this month is a book called The Annotated Alice. This is a non-fiction book which is basically just explaining all of the various cultural, historical, and logical sort of things that are going on behind the work of Alice in Wonderland, because there's actually a lot to that book that goes on beneath the surface, which most people don't notice. I've read this book before, but I've got another craving to read it again, especially because I can't remember most of the things that were talked about, so I'm very excited to be reading that book this month as well. Fourth book that I'm thinking about maybe reading this month is, I am hoping to do a buddy read of Heartless with Clara from Clara Reads Books, but that buddy read is still in the works. We haven't really talked about whether or not we're going to do that or finalize that, so that might happen this month or that might happen next month, I'm not sure, but Heartless is definitely on the way, and I really hope that I can read it this month, because obviously it fits perfectly with the March theme. Finally, even though this is already a crap ton of books that I'm probably not going to get done this month, I need to pick a book out of my TBR jar. Final book needs to be pulled out of this delightful TBR jar, even though I've already got 4 books potentially on my list and I'm probably not going to get them all read. Let's find out what the last one is. Final book, according to this, is The Unbearable Lightness of Being by Milan Kundera, something. Random side note, while I was searching for The Unbearable Lightness of Being on Goodreads so that I could tell you more about what the book is about, I came across a book called The Unbearable Lightness of Scones, which is a book by Alexander McCall Smith, who is the author of the #1 Ladies Detective Agency that I pretty much go on a ramble about how much I love every single video that I ever make. Goodreads summary describes The Unbearable Lightness of Being as a book about a young woman. She's in love with a man who is, according to Goodreads, an incorrigible womanizer with many, many mistresses, of which she is one. and the story is kind of about her trying to reconcile with the thought of this man that she loves being a womanizer. I did not explain that very well, but you can blame Goodreads for that, not me. Wasn't me, not at all. Anyway, like I said earlier, I am filming this a day early, and the reason why I'm filming this a day early is because I'm going to a wedding tomorrow. One of my work colleagues, and in fact the work colleague who has been my supervisor since my very first day at this workplace that I've been at for nearly 4.5 years, is getting married tomorrow. So I will be very busily and happily going along to that wedding instead of filming wrap-ups for you. That is the reason why I'm counting Beauty and the Beast, because I know that I will finish it tonight, but I don't get to film it tomorrow because I am watching people get married. So I'm about to rush off and buy a dress to wear to this wedding tomorrow, but to make up for that, you have 2 other videos today to watch and enjoy. One of those being my first ever seasonal booktube shoutouts video, and the other one being an unboxing video for my first ever subscription box. So that's pretty exciting. Like I said, the theme for this month is March Hares and Mad Hatters, so lots of whimsical Alice in Wonderland posts to come this month, along with a couple of posts that I have decided to throw in for the sake of Women's History Month as well. So I've got lots and lots of exciting things planned for you guys this month. Look forward to those. In the meanwhile, have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. I will see you very soon, and until then, stay classic. I'm sure you're all wondering why I gathered you here today. Well, the truth is, I have some buttons for you to click.